Hi guys, my name is Ariel Berkowitz and this is Brittany Erler, and we're here to talk to you about anti-gun control basically. So I want to introduce you guys to a scenario where you're asleep, it's the middle of the night, your spouse is asleep, your children are asleep, and you hear something going on downstairs. You know it's not a pet, you're unfamiliar with this sound. It sounds like somebody's talking to one another, like someone else is in your house and everyone's asleep, so it couldn't possibly be either of you guys. So in this position, your Second Amendment has basically been revoked. You don't have access to a personal gun in your house and you don't know what to do. You're stuck in this situation. You have no way to prevent yourself or your family from being attacked. So basically you're relying on law enforcement to respond to the crime scene, but it takes a while, let's be honest. It's going to take a little bit. And this circumstance, gun advocates like Brittany and I we want to prevent this situation from happening, is what I'm trying to get at. So Brittany, go ahead and take it away.
One of the reasons why we feel like we should be able to keep our firearms is, one, it's a constitutional right. Everybody should know that the Second Amendment is the right to bear arms. As it states in the U.S. Constitution, it was adopted on December 15th, 1791. It states a well-regulated militia being necessary to security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed on. Many argue that the phrase a well-regulated militia was actually intended to help prevent the federal government from violating the state's abilities to defend themselves. So basically tyranny. It keeps the states having their own government and the federal government not being able to come in and rule the whole entire country.
Basically when the redcoats were involved in the beginning of the United States. So another way that owning a gun, or at least being a gun advocate, is that it provides protection. Guns allow citizens to ensure their right to defend their homes against invaders, like the scenario that we just previously talked about. And many Americans, in fact, actually feel safer when they know that they have a firearm at their home, even if they never have to use it. It's just there in case something like the scenario we talked about happens, or something along those lines. In fact, critics of reforming gun control insist that gun control laws would do nothing to stop mentally ill or disturbed people, or criminals for that matter, from committing from preventing violent crimes, and could hinder citizens' abilities to defend themselves from such people. So you need a gun, or you need some form of protection, or you need to know martial arts.
Another reason why we are arguing to keep our firearms is because of the recreational. A lot of people use their firearms not just for protection, but also for recreation, whether it's just going out to the shooting range and releasing some much needed stress, or going hunting. We live in America, and especially in the South, where many of us, right now it's in the middle of deer season, and I know plenty of family and friends that are out there using weapons to hunt deer. I also know a lot of people that use the meat, it's the only meat that they eat for the year is what they hunt or what they fish. So if you take away firearms, you're in reality taking food off of people's tables, and they're not able to feed their family if you take away these firearms.
Right. So how exactly do firearms prevent criminal activities? For the main reason, criminals don't know who else is armed. Criminals don't know who else has a concealed carry other than, a policeman, out on the streets, right? And states that allow their citizens to have concealed weapons actually have a lower crime rate than those who do not. We believe this is part of criminals not being able to know who is armed, and who is not. So deciphering whether you have a gun or if you don't have a gun. If you don't, if they don't know who has a weapon in like a facility they're trying to rob and there's other consumers in the building, they're probably not going to rob or burglarize that store. So another way that it prevents criminal activities from occurring is that it can possibly minimize massive shooting. So it's not really realistic for the public to rely on law enforcement for its protection, just because it takes police to respond to the crime that is happening.
Yeah, so guns are used 100 times more to save a life than to take a life. So an instance, like we had a recent active shooter down in Texas where a citizen was going on about his normal day and actually reduced the mass shooting because he was able to be there and pull his concealed carry and help law enforcement stop that before that shooting became even more massive than what it already was. So that's just a few examples of how it can minimize criminal activity. Another way is what we want to talk about is all the misconceptions about firearms, and Ariel will tell you of one of those.
Yeah. So banning firearms. So this is a misconception. Banning firearms will reduce all criminal activities. That's not the case. The majority of U.S. or United States gun owners don't represent a threat to society. Many of the states that allow citizens to carry concealed weapons have lower crime rates than those who do not, which we kind of reiterated from earlier. But a lot of people believe that if the United States bans all firearms, or further constricts, firearm ownership, that all crimes of violence will just disappear. But that's not how it's going to work. If that were it to be the case, or if that would work that way, we wouldn't have drugs. We would have illegal substances. We wouldn't have those on the streets. Those somehow make their way into the United States, as would guns. Guns would make their way to people that want to use them for bad or for criminal activities. So basically, more guns equals less violence, especially for the ones that use them for security reasons.
So, like she said, more guns equals less violence is another misconception that firearms gets. It actually states here that lowered crime rates in some states where residents are allowed to carry concealed weapons is a proof that gun violence is more than just having ownership, meaning that it's not guns that kill people, it's people that kill people. Gun violence is the fault of the individual perpetrators, not the weapons themselves. We cannot blame gun owners, the gun itself, or the liberties protected in the Second Amendment of how evil people abuse that freedom.
Sure. So for this video, we kind of just hope that we further informed you about gun owning and maybe become an advocate of gun owning yourself, or maybe own a gun yourself. We just want to maybe persuade you to own a gun or to advocate a gun, and kind of direct you to those misconceptions and kind of be more informed that those aren't the case at all. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video.